Countdown Conspiracy, Chapter 16, Part 1. Mars, Esteban whispers. Tamaki nods. 8.5 years too early, but that's where we're going. We'll never make it, Rahim says. Everything has crawled to a stop. It's hard to tell if the floating feeling in my internal organs is from terror, lack of gravity, or both. Mars. We're going to Mars. I think through everything we have on the space plane. There's rudimentary food lab equipment and a water recycler, but with only my small 3D printer, there'd be nothing to build proper shelter or greenhouse equipment. Even if we did make it, I rubbed my temple, ignoring the feeling in my stomach. We'd have next to nothing to work with once there. We need to call for help, Rahim says. Esteban, are the communication systems working yet? Esteban shakes his head. No, I'll keep trying, though. The space plane flips over gracefully. Some parts of me registers the sound of Najma crying at her console and Tamaki swearing at his controls. Mostly, though, my mind fluctuates between two thoughts. We're flying to Mars. I need to get this space plane prepared. We're flying to Mars. I need to get this space plane prepared. It's like the rest of me is in suspended animation. We're flying to Mars, and I have no idea how to stop us. Esteban lets out a wail of frustration from his computer. I unhook Ruby and have her clasp onto my flight suit. Then I let go, and we float together. It'll be okay, I whisper, keeping one hand on her. She mimics the gesture and places one of her arms on me. We won't actually go to Mars. We'll get home somehow. Well, I don't see how, Anna says. I blink at her. She looks blurry. Everyone looks blurry. Shut up, Tamaki snaps at her. We'll get home. We'll figure this out. Najma will get us in control of the space plane, Esteban insists. Does anyone else feel dizzy? Najma asks meekly. I slowly turn my gaze toward my arguing crewmates. Esteban is wiping tears from his eyes. His hair pokes out of his headset. I find that I have to look at each of my peers carefully in turn, because the edges of my vision are going darker and darker. Rahim, I murmur, how's our oxygen? Fine, he replies. Then I feel his hands on my shoulders. Maybe you should sit down. I waver in the air. Do I look that bad? I must, because both Rahim and Esteban push me into my chair and buckle me in. I don't even resist. Ruby's with me. That's all that matters. Great, Anna snorts. Our flight engineer's about to faint, and our programmers can't stop crying. Really sounds like we're going to get this space plane turned around soon. Just stop it already, please, Najma yells, shaking where she sits. We can't keep fighting. It's going to take all of us to figure this out and get home. No, it's going to take you to break us back into the system. Anna spins at her. Stop bawling and get working, or we're going to be stuck in this metal coffin forever. A new gush of tears floods Najma's eyes, and she has to scrub at them to clear them, since the surface tension of water won't let a single drop out. Way to go, Anna, Tamaki says. How's she supposed to work now? Najma, I start to say. No, she's right, Najma says, still wiping her face. I need to get back to work. Esteban puts a hand on her shoulder, using his other to steer himself from floating away. Let us know what we can do to help. Tamaki nods. If you want us to bind and gag Anna, that can be arranged. Anna's nostrils flare, and for the first time, her eyes finally look damp. Whatever. She floats out of the main cabin to a side chamber. The door slams behind her, and I cringe. The doors aren't meant to slam. Rahim sighs. At least she picked a pressurized chamber. I'd better inspect that door. I fight the dizziness and unbuckle my belt, scanning the hatchway. Ruby follows. Maybe we can figure out a way to pressurize more sections, if we really are going to be here a while, I say to her. Going to be here a while. She repeats my last words, miming my hunched shoulders and drifting along. She's got the right idea. I really do feel like I could just slip into sleep. but I shouldn't feel that way. I straighten up, narrowing my eyes. Calculations start going through my head. How much nitrogen and oxygen our tanks contain, how many cubic meters of space there are on this craft, and soon I find myself back at my console running simulations. Oh, for crying out loud! I slam my hand down. There's a nitrogen leak, Raheem! Oxygen levels are normal, but only averaged over the entire spacecraft. And here, they're way off. Really? Raheem asks, floating over. He's got his hand on his head, and I know he's feeling it too. Yes, I push away from my console, frustrated. I thought you fixed that earlier. How did you miss that it's still leaking? Raheem winces. I'm sorry. Ugh! I hold on to Ruby and push out of the main chamber. Come on, Ruby, let's get this fixed. Can I help? I hear Raheem call from behind me. Help Najma, I tell him. Keep Esteban working on fixing communications. You and Najma need to get us back in control. Then I shut the door and float through the tunnel toward the cryo dock. It's been several hours of small fixes, starting with getting oxygen levels normalized. Ruby and I haven't had more than 5 minutes to rest, but it can't be helped. We've got to keep the spaceplane working. It's all I can contribute as Najma does everything she can to regain control for us. Anna has finally slunk back into the cockpit, sitting next to Tamaki, and quietly working with him to get the steering system back online. We still haven't been able to send or receive any communications through, though Esteban hasn't given up. And Raheem's been avoiding me ever since I snapped at him, which I do feel bad about, but have chalked it up to my deoxygenated brain at that moment. He's been assisting Najma, like I suggested. My droidlet pings. Task complete, waiting for instruction. Thanks, Ruby, I say. She's wrapped up fixing the wiring in our food lab so we can rehydrate some packets of space food that we thankfully found stored on board. Let's tackle the water filtration next, okay? I've got it, I hear Najma exclaim from the cockpit. I spin, dropping my screwdriver, which would have clanked on the metal floor if we weren't out in space. It only takes half a second before we're all hovering near Najma's console, desperately staring at a screen of code that's way over any of our heads. Don't get too excited, she cautions. It's a hypnovirus. Esteban groans. What does that mean exactly? Anna asks carefully. I'm glad she does, because I have no idea what a hypnovirus is either. It means that I can't delete it, for one thing, Najma replies. It's like a parasite. It gets in and doesn't leave. Hypnoviruses evolve to fight whatever you throw at them. They are placed in a system and given a task, and they will find a way to complete that task. This one's task is to take us to Mars. So let me get this straight, Tamaki says. This thing will do everything in its power to take us to Mars, and there's no way of stopping it? I didn't say that, Najma says. We all perk back up. I can try to isolate it, quarantine it on a different system. Our space plane has 2 main computer systems that would be able to house such a complicated virus. If I put it on the backup system rather than our main system, we should regain control of most of the space plane's functions. Najma, that's fantastic, I gasp. You're a genius. Najma smiles at me. Thanks. Esteban gives her a huge hug. Thank you, he says, as her cheeks darken. You've just saved us all. See? He lets go of her and looks at all of us, grinning. I knew we'd be okay. Good, Anna says, nodding in approval. How long will this take? Najma shrugs. Once I create the code, it'll probably need a while to run. Maybe 10 to 12 hours? Tamaki whistles. That's a while. Better than a 9-month trip to Mars, though, Raheem says. We all laugh, even Anna. There's hope yet. I've never had to strap myself into a sleeping bag mounted on a wall before, but that's basically what I did last night. Of course, on the space plane, there is no real day or night, but we all agreed that we should try to sleep as Najma's programming runs. With any luck, now that we're awake, we should be only minutes away from regaining access to the ship's controls. Not that that really means anything. In the back of my brain, I've done some rather terrifying calculations that I'm not sure I'm ready to share with everyone yet. Even if we regain control of our space plane, it's not just a matter of pulling a U-turn. Stopping this thing and turning it around is next to impossible with the remaining fuel we have, even if Tamaki and I literally got out in our EMUs and pushed. I shrink back in my flight suit. No, we'll think of something. For now, our best bet is to keep the survival basics working. My droidlet pings. Task complete, waiting for instruction. I turn to my robot. We're in the back chamber securing the spaceplane air cyclers. Ruby's finished soldering the piping in place, and I've just finished installing the filter. A few screws float loose around me. I snatch at them, missing the first couple times. Maybe I'll build an electromagnet later if I get a chance. For now, that's just one more item we don't have with us that would be useful. Come on, Ruby, I say. Ruby swivels her head to me, and I snap her back into place on my flight suit. Let's go check and see if Najma's code is done running yet. Heading back through the various doors to the main cabin, I pass Anna, who's coming in from the side. She hasn't talked to me since everything went down yesterday, but she does follow me to the cockpit, and I can only assume it's because she wants to see Najma's progress too. When we reach the main cabin, all three boys are already there. Good, you're here, Najma says, catching sight of Anna and me. I'm ready to test and see if this worked. Fire it up, Tamaki says. He's casually leaning up against the wall, which is a serious feat in zero gravity. I have to hand it to him. He really does know how to look cool in any given situation. Ready? Najma asks. As ready as we'll ever be. I find myself crossing my fingers even though it's an absurdly pointless gesture. Through the windows in front of us, space is dark. Najma boots up the computers, and the effect is almost blinding. Every screen on the ship flickers to life with a flash of light. Yes! Tamaki pumps his fist in the air. You did it! Esteban exclaims. This is fantastic! My heart beats so fast. I'm worried it might just burst from some sort of weird micro-vacuum up here in space. Ruby bounces up and down next to me, and I choke out a relieved laugh. We're back. The spaceplane is ours. Just a warning, Najma says, cutting off Esteban's string of high fives to everyone around him. Remember, the virus isn't gone, only quarantined on the back drive. That means some systems still won't work, and it's going to keep trying to pursue its directive of getting us to Mars. But hopefully this will at least allow us to get back flight controls and control over fuel output. Thanks, Najma, I say in a rush. We can work with this. I quickly head back to my seat and grab my console. I don't think I've ever been this happy in my entire life to have a computer boot up in front of me. We need to call home, Raheem says. I'm on it. Esteban straps himself into his chair and flips on the main screen. Let me just... Oh, wait. That's incoming, not outgoing. The screen beeps at us. There are over 300 messages. Wow, Najma whispers. They've really been trying to get a hold of us, haven't they? Yeah. Esteban fiddles with his console. I can't seem to get a call started. Najma, is this one of those backup drive things you mentioned? It shouldn't be, Najma frowns. Try to get the messages. Maybe it's just overloaded. Esteban clicks a few more buttons. Nothing happens. So communications are still down, Anna says. It would seem so, Najma sighs. Sorry, I'll work on those. Might be just a glitch. Or another layer of encryption to keep us from communicating, Anna replies. Whoever did this must know we could reveal them and likely doesn't want us tattled. Remember, Miranda let it slip to Kreshkov's nephew. Oh, don't even bring Kreshkov into this, Tamaki says before I can protest about Sasha. I'm so sick of you all pinning this on him. I don't think it's Kreshkov, Najma says carefully. Not with this level of programming. This is something only someone like Dr. Schubert could have managed. Esteban and I exchange glances. I nod at him. So, about that, Esteban begins. Then he reveals to the rest of the group what he learned about Mr. Burnett being the secret message sender, and I explain my suspicions about Dr. Schubert and the ISECG. I'm careful not to make it sound like I'm excusing Sasha of anything, though, since I already know how the group would react to that. Why didn't you tell us this earlier? Tamaki demands when we're done.